It is fitting that in my last video talking about Prince Philip dying and the British throne and giving you some prophecy regarding that British throne, and that the prophecies of the Bible will not all come to pass until there is a prince sitting on the throne of David, until there is a prince upon the royal throne of Britain. Prophecy then can start to come to pass according to God's will and God's time plan. So it is fitting that we have come to Luke chapter 21 in the videos on what Christ taught. So Luke 21 is a very important prophecy. And he looked up and saw the rich man casting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw also a certain poor widow casting in her 2 mites. And he said, of a truth, I say unto you, that this poor widow has cast in more than all of those others. For all the others have of their abundance cast into the offering to God. But she, of her small amount, has cast in all of her living. And as some spoke about the temple, now you need to pick this up in Matthew chapter 24, because it was not only the temple that they were talking about, but it was also, they were asking, his disciples were asking him, tell us the signs that we should be looking for your coming again. Verse 5, and some spoke about the temple, how it was adorned with goodly stones and gifts, and said, as for these things, Jesus said, which you behold, the day will come in which there shall not be left one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down. This is nothing to do with 70 AD, because the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem was indeed a part of the outer walls of that temple. And if you go to a Bible dictionary, you can see all of the different compartments or the different courtyards of Herod's temple. And that outer wall was a part of the temple, because Jesus said in the Gospels that when he overthrew the money changers, a Bible dictionary will tell you that as soon as you entered through that outer wall, that's where they sold the sacrifices, and that's where they made a killing, pun not really intended, but they made a killing on selling those animals and birds and so forth for sacrificing. And Jesus threw them out and said that my temple shall be called a house of prayer. So Jesus, by his own interpretation in the Gospels, included that outer wall of Herod's magnificent built temple as part of God's temple. Jesus Christ, in his own words then, said that that was part of the temple, and a part of that wall is still standing today, the Wailing Wall, and it will in the future come crashing down, and the prophecy that Jesus talked about here will be fulfilled. And verse 7, and they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be? And what shall be the signs when these things shall come to pass? And remember, Matthew's writing about this. They were also asking, what shall be the signs of your coming again? And he said, take heed, and do not be deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying that I am the Christ. In other words, they will come and say that Jesus, yes, is the Christ. And the time draws near. Oh, it's going to happen in the next month. It's going to happen in the next year. It's going to happen in this date and that date. And you've got them all going on the internet with their dates and their numbers and so forth and so on. And it's been going on for decades upon decades. People have been setting the year or the month or the day. And it's still happening. It's been happening for decades and it's still happening. Yes, people will be saying, oh, yes, the time is near. And they don't have a clue about prophecy. And they don't understand the prophetic word. And they don't understand what prophecies we are to look to tell us how close it is to the time of the end. But they're going to be saying, oh, the time draws near. Jesus said, go not after them. But when you shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must come to pass, but the end is still by and by. Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and great earthquakes shall be in different places, and famines and pestilences. And we've had pestilences in the last 20, 30 years, AIDS and Ebola, and now COVID, probably the greatest pestilence in the last 100 years around the world, COVID. Jesus said, you're going to have pestilences, and fearsome sights and great signs shall be in the heavens. We haven't quite got to that point yet. We haven't got to the great signs that is going to happen in the heavens. But Jesus goes on to say, but before all these things, so especially before the signs of the heavens, that you're going to put that with Revelation chapter 6 and the sixth seal. The sixth seal of Revelation 6 is the heavenly signs. And Jesus says here in verse 12, but before these things, before these signs in the heaven, they shall lay hands upon you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate beforehand, for I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to resist against you. And you shall be betrayed by parents, by brethren and kinsfolk. You, my disciples, shall be betrayed by parents and brethren and kinsfolk and friends. And some of you, they shall be put to death. That hasn't happened yet, friends. The great heavenly signs haven't happened. And Jesus said before that, there's going to be a persecution upon true Christians, and some will have to die for the faith. And it's always been that way, my friends, down through the ages. There's been persecutions from time to time. Some have escaped. Some will escape, the ones that are yet coming, and some haven't. Some have had to stand up for the truth and the faith of God, even to their death. Verse 16. Or verse 17, and you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but there shall not a hair of your head perish. In your patience, endurance, possess you your lives. And when you shall see Jerusalem, now, in the other Gospels, Mark and Matthew, it's the abomination that makes desolate. The interpretation of that is given to us here in Luke. The Bible interprets the Bible. It isn't a case of you coming up with your own ideas of what it is. The Bible interprets the Bible. And in Luke, the interpretation is given of the abomination, an abominable thing in the sight of God, an absolute abomination, and it's going to make Jerusalem desolate. When you see then armies around Jerusalem, know that the desolation thereof is nigh. And then, them which are in Judea better flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and don't turn, and don't, any countries that are outside there that you living in, don't go into that country. Don't go into Palestine, for these be the days of vengeance, that all things that are written may be fulfilled. There is coming a time, and this is the key to this time, when all shall be fulfilled, is the surrounding of Jerusalem by armies and its desolation. And that Wailing Wall will come crumbling down. And Jesus' prophecy that one stone will not be left upon another will finally be fulfilled. Verse 23, but woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, in the Palestine, in the Holy Land, and wrath upon this people, the Jews, and the people living in the Holy Land. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled, until God allows that to be trodden down by the Gentiles until Jesus Christ will return and deliver Jerusalem out of the hand of the Gentiles. Verse 25, and then there shall be signs in the sun and the moon. Now we've come to Revelation chapter 6 and the sixth seal. The fifth seal was the persecution of Christians. The sixth seal is the heavenly signs in Revelation 6. And then shall be the signs of the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress amongst nations, and perplexity, and the sea and waves roaring, men's heart failing them for fear, and for looking upon those things that are coming on the earth. For the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Verse 27, and then, after that, you have then the persecution of saints. Revelation 6, the fifth seal. Revelation 6, the sixth seal, the heavenly signs. And then Jesus says, after that, they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. Christ Jesus' return is one return. It's not two returns. It's not an invisible return and then X number of years later, a literal kind of return where everybody sees him. Jesus only ever spoke about one coming again. And it is going to be literal. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draws nigh. The prophecies that are going to lead to the last 42 months, book of Revelation, the last 1,260 days, times and half a time, the book of Revelation, leading up to those prophecies is what Jesus said here. There's going to be a persecution against true children of God. There is going to be heavenly signs like this world has never seen before. And then it will be the coming of Christ. The book of Revelation, of course, expands on all of that, goes into more detail about it all. And Jesus then will return in power and glory. These things are not even going to start to take place, as I mentioned in the last video, until there is a man prince sitting on the throne of David in Britain. And then, sometime then, after that time, and God doesn't say how long after that time. We know there's certainly going to be, could be 3 generations. You're going to have a man. When the queen dies, you'll have a man. When he dies, there'll be his son. There'll be a son after him. We know that. And so it's in God's hands. But it won't even start to take place until there is a prince sitting, a man prince sitting on the throne of David in Britain. And then sometime in God's plan, all of this that I've just read in Luke 21 will start to come to pass. And Jesus says you are to watch, just like you can know the seasons of the year by watching. He says to keep your eye on these things, be watching, be ready. And verse 36, watch you therefore, and pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Yes, some are going to escape these things. It's always been that way. It's always been that way down through the centuries. You can see in history, some true saints of God, true children of God, have escaped persecution in the hills and the dales and the forests. And some have had to stand up and give their life for the truth of God. It will be the same again during the end time great tribulation that is to come upon this earth. Then you will have the heavenly signs. Then you will have the coming of Jesus Christ. And we look forward to his coming. We pray continually, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.